It has been one of the busiest wrestling weekends of the year, and Loaded was a part of it. The ReLoaded podcast is on the air. Dave Bradshaw here with James R. Kennedy. We have much to discuss. How's your week been?
Oh, it's been wrestle-tastic, Dave. I mean, you talk about all that's been going on over in the States, and don't forget what's been going on right here in Defiant as well. We've got a big show coming up. Loaded was a big show, but we've got an even bigger one coming up in Leeds with Lights Out. It's just an exciting time to be involved in wrestling.
Yeah, we're just a week away now from Lights Out in Leeds, and as you say, there have been more and more developments about that show in the past week, particularly Loaded on Sunday night. We'll get to all of those in a minute, but since we were talking about what a busy week it's been in wrestling, just a quick shout out to a couple of guys who've been involved with Defiant or WCPW in the past. First of all, Kurt Angle. Congratulations to Kurt on a wonderful career, and enjoy a very, very happy retirement. And also Bret Hart, who's now a two-time Hall of Famer over in WWE. Bret Hart, of course. You had a bit of an interaction with Bret Hart when he was over here, didn't you?
I did, and basically at that time I was managing Prospect Bradshaw, and I had to find a way to enhance their reputations, and what better way to do that than by going after one of the biggest icons in this industry, and Bret Hart is certainly that. And I want to point out that I had nothing, absolutely nothing to do with what happened. I know how you think, and I know you think I'm the kind of man who would pay to have someone attacked or whatever, but I certainly had nothing to do with it. That was a disgrace, and Bret Hart, he's a class act, a deserving two-time Hall of Famer.
All right, well, congratulations to both Kurt and to Bret. But let's move on to Loaded and what happened this past week. We have had quite a Sunday, didn't we, on Loaded? What a way to start people's Sunday night of wrestling. And, I mean, what we've got to start with is something that I've actually been a little bit nervous about having to raise with you, because of all the things, I know you defend Gabriel Kidd. I know you defend John Klinger sometimes in the past. But please, for the love of God, tell me you are not going to defend that assault that happened at the end of Loaded.
Well, I'm not going to defend it, no, but bear with me.
Yeah, here comes the but.
Well, no, listen, because even in, such a horrible situation as that no doubt was, you have to take something positive from it. You have to try and turn a negative into a positive. And even you, Dave Bradshaw, you have to admit that this was a well-orchestrated plan from John Klinger and Gabriel Kidd. They were the ringleaders of this plan. It just had to be well-orchestrated. The way the anti-fun police got involved, everything about it was just well done. And you have to admire a good plan that's executed well. Even you have to do that.
Sorry, in everything that happened, you've managed to find the one thing to compliment them on. Never mind, like, just how absolutely horrendous it was what they did to the three men who were their victims, to Simon Miller, to David Starr, to Joe Hendry. Never mind everything that happened. The thing you want to focus on is it was well orchestrated.
Well, it was.
Come on, it was. I don't care if it was. Imagine that being your takeaway from it. Oh, it was well. Let's give them credit for an orchestrated plan. Are you seriously? Listen to yourself.
Well, remember what's coming up at Lights Out, because we've got Gabriel Kidd going one-on-one with David Starr. We've got Joe Hendry going face-to-face with the badness John Klinger. Kidd and Klinger know that. They're just preparing ahead of time. There's another positive. They're well prepared. This was well orchestrated. Those two gents are well prepared. They came armed with tape. They taped the prestigious one, Joe Hendry, to the ropes. They took Simon Miller out. It was a thing of beauty. And then Gabriel Kidd got to vent and rant at David Starr before putting the boots to him. And don't forget, Dave, what they did to the assistant, Adam Foster, as well. They put him in hospital.
Well, since you want to go on about this plan, let's have a look at it, because I think it's now pretty clear what was happening last week on Loaded, right? We saw Gabriel Kidd giving some cash to Klinger. Klinger then gave that money to someone off camera, who I think we can now pretty safely assume was the anti-fun police, right? Because the only thing that makes sense here, given what happened subsequently, is that it was the anti-fun police who presumably attacked Foster.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, you're not.
You know I don't like interrupting. I just don't like doing it. However, How do you know for sure that it was the anti-fun police? Because hear me out on this. You were the first one to say about someone else in Defiant Wrestling, and I'm talking about the women's champion, Kanji. When I doubted, I and others, but we'll get to that a bit later on, when I doubted that Kanji's injury that she posted about on social media was legitimate, you told me that I couldn't prove that it wasn't. Now, you cannot sit there, Dave Bradshaw, and prove that the anti-fun police took that payment. No. You just can't do it.
No, I can't prove it, but I'm also not an idiot, and I'm not naive, and I think we can all notice the difference. We can all recognise the difference in the character of someone like Kanji versus the character, the integrity of someone like John Klinger or the anti-fun police or Gabriel Kidd. So whereas Kanji, absolutely, we can give the benefit of the doubt. You can't say the same of any of those guys. And so someone obviously attacked Adam Foster back in the locker room, and that was much to the benefit of that subsequent plan that unfolded in the ring during our main event on Sunday night. So who benefited from it? Who were the ones who don't have an alibi for where they were when it happened? I mean, it's obvious, isn't it?
Well, who's to say? You know, and again, you know, I'm going to be saying this a lot
tonight. Who do you
tonight.
think it was then? What do you think happened to Adam Foster?
Well, all I'm going to say is, and you're going to laugh at this, but, you know, because I know how you are, and I know you like to see the best in these guys. But all I'm saying, Dave, is that when General Amin was approached by Benji, and I'm not for 1 second blaming Benji, don't think that that's where I'm going with this. When Benji approached General Amin, interrupted his phone call, called him away from important Defiant Wrestling business, and called him to the scene of the crime where Adam Foster was laid out, his arm looked to be in a terrible, terrible way, Tuck Shop were on the scene, and they were the only ones there. So who says that Jack Sexsmith and Visage aren't responsible for this heinous attack?
Why would they be? Like, what do they have to gain, for goodness sake? And Benji's their accomplice, is he? Let's make this. Let's spread out this conspiracy. Make it even more ludicrous.
Well, here's my logic. Right. And I know you're waiting with bated breath on this, but I think that, don't forget, recently General Amin told Tuck Shop that they had a long, long way to go before they would get a shot at the Defiant Tag Team Championships. Now, maybe the Tuck Shop have decided that they're going to start at the bottom of the managerial ladder and work their way up. Maybe Simon Miller's next, and then after that, General Amin will feel the wrath of Sexsmith and Visage. There's no stopping these guys, Dave. I'm going to go on record as calling it first. They are dangerous, they are outlaws, they are reckless, and they probably attacked Adam Foster.
Well, I'm not going to merit that with not going to justify that with a response, but let's talk about people who are dangerous and do need stopping. And the anti-fun police obviously were the hired goons here, but we can talk about Klinger, we can talk about Gabriel Kidd. Let's start with Kidd. Gabriel Kidd is someone who I've been fairly critical of, to put it mildly, for the past year or so, but he's getting worse. I mean, Gabriel Kidd, that was the most unhinged, the most outright dangerous I think I've ever seen Gabriel Kidd be. It was honestly scary. I didn't know, you didn't know when you were in that room at that time how far Gabriel Kidd was prepared to go. He choked out David Starr. We saw what he did to Miller. We saw him taping Hendry and then attacking Hendry as well. You didn't know how long it was going to go on. It felt like it lasted forever, that assault, and it only stopped because Kidd decided to call off the Wolves, you know, and it could have gone on for longer and longer. It was very much at his mercy, this whole situation, and I don't know what we do now with this force of nature that is the young bull Gabriel Kidd, but he's getting to be a existential threat to a lot of guys on this roster. And if you don't believe me, you can ask the 3 men who were his victims on Sunday.
Well, never mind a John Klinger problem, because now Defiant Wrestling management has more on their plate than just the badness. They have John Klinger, yes, but they also have a Gabriel Kidd problem, and maybe an anti-fun police one too, because I get the distinct impression that it's no accident, it's no coincidence that so many wrestlers here in Defiant are not happy with where they are on the pecking order around here, and they want to do something about it. And John Klinger, Gabriel Kidd, and the anti-fun police are brave enough men that they have banded together and they have taken a stand against this tyranny. Now again, I am not for 1 second justifying how they went about it, but That's their business. It's up to Amin, Simon Miller, and the assistant, Adam Foster, to do something about this and keep the roster happy. Otherwise, things like this will continue to happen.
Yeah, I mean, they're real folk heroes, aren't they? I mean, your priorities in this world are so bizarre. Here's a question, by the way. We had a question on this from Alex Jones at Johns_Alex saying, why did no one run out and try to stop them? Why did no one come out and try and stop Kidd and Klinger and the anti-fun police as they were unleashing this assault, this 5-on-3 attack at the end of Loaded? And that's a good question, but actually it made me think, well, first of all, obviously if someone comes out there, they're still going to be against the odds, because at that point 3 guys have been taken down, so they would have been potentially facing 5-on-1 odds. But also, I don't know if particularly Hendry and Starr have many friends back in the locker room. You know, they're controversial characters. They barely got along with each other. And so there's this question hanging, why did no one come out? And I think it's because, obviously, for someone to do that, they'd be putting themselves at considerable personal risk. And I don't know. I just don't think there was anyone prepared to do that.
Well, I think you're right. Because Joe Hendry, if you recall back to his days as the leader of the Prestige, you know, since that group dissolved, he's been somewhat of a lone wolf. Yes, he's had acquaintances. We saw him help out Primate before Rory Coyle dispatched him from Defiant. We've also witnessed him team up with David Starr on Loaded this past week. But really, Joe Hendry is all about Joe Hendry. David Starr, very much the same. He's a lone wolf who wants to do things on his own. So they're not really the best of bedfellows to begin with. I think you're bang on the money. I really do. I really do believe that you're spot on, Dave Bradshaw, because Joe Hendry and David Starr, they believe in themselves so much that sometimes amongst the other wrestlers in Defiant, that could be construed as arrogance. And maybe that repelled anyone else from helping them. But also, a little addition to that point, who the hell was there to run in? Because I'm presuming that General Amin went to the hospital with Adam Foster. We don't know for a fact if Benji, Visage, Jack Sexsmith went with them. We don't know who else went. You know, there was a lot of concern, as far as I could see, over the well-being of Foster. His arm looked to be in a terrible state, as I said earlier, so we don't know who was even available to come out and help Hendry and Starr. And also, we don't know if maybe John Klinger and Gabriel Kidd and the anti-fun police had done significant damage to others on the roster as well to prepare for that. Well-orchestrated plan, as I say.
Yeah, and part of the reason it's so well orchestrated is because it was the last thing on the show, right? So a lot of guys will have left as well. You know, once you don't have any more matches scheduled on that night, you probably leave. So you're right. I mean, there could have been very few people in the locker room anyway. Let me ask you this though, General Amin, I know he wasn't there. He was probably at the hospital as it happened. But you're right to say that it's no longer just a Klinger problem. It is a Klinger problem, a Kidd problem, an anti-fun police problem. And in the immediate term, with just 7 days to go now until Lights Out, it is a Lights Out problem. Because I don't know now what the future is of these 2 matches. I mean, Klinger is supposed to take on Hendry. Kidd is supposed to take on David Starr. Starr and Hendry were so badly beaten, I haven't heard that their status is in jeopardy for Lights Out in the sense that I believe they are well enough to be medically cleared to compete. But these 2 matches now could be incredibly one-sided because there's no way either of those 2 are going to be at 100%, which presumably was the aim of Kidd and of Klinger in the first place. But they've potentially done tremendous damage to what could have been 2 remarkable matches at Lights Out. So what does General Amin do? He can't let that fly.
Well, you're damn right he can't. He will look to throw out punishments, I would imagine. But I would hesitate to suggest that General Amin and Simon Miller and Adam Foster firmly believed in their heart of hearts that Joe Hendry going one-on-one with John Klinger, with all that Hendry has accomplished, not only in Defiant Wrestling but around the globe, David Starr the same, going one-on-one with Gabriel Kidd, they firmly believed that Hendry and Starr would deal with these problems at Lights Out. And as you say, Dave, they might medically not be in the position to do that. And what happens to the future of Defiant and this John Klinger problem, this Gabriel Kidd problem? What happens if if Hendry and Starr turn up at Lights Out in Leeds on April 17th and they get beaten soundly by Klinger and Kidd? What happens then? Because I'm not sure that there's a plan for the management here in Defiant to fall back on beyond Lights Out. And that's going to be the big story here. Will Hendry and Starr even be fit enough to face Klinger and Kidd at Lights Out? And if they are, can they get the job done? Because if they don't, this domination, this reign of absolute hatred from Klinger and Kidd, it's going to continue.
Yeah, I mean, the only way that you would stop either David Starr or Joe Hendry from getting in there next Wednesday is if either of them or both of them were totally forbidden to by management, because neither of them are going to withdraw themselves from those matches. We've seen that with Starr recently, for example. You know, Starr went in there for that match with Joe Hendry when he really shouldn't have been in there on Loaded after the assault from Gabriel Kidd back in the locker room a few weeks ago. So Starr isn't going to be the kind of guy who says, you know what, I'm not ready to go, postpone the match against Kidd. He's going to get in there regardless. Hendry is exactly the same against Klinger. So not only might they get soundly beaten and it might not solve the problem, but they might get hurt. You know, they might exacerbate, might make much worse whatever injuries they've suffered thanks to this assault last Sunday. And then not only have you not solved the problem, but two of Defiant Wrestling's biggest assets in David Starr and Joe Hendry could be taken out of commission permanently. So then you've created an even bigger problem. And that is the issue now that's facing General Amin.
There are so many problems and issues facing our esteemed general manager, not least what happened. You know, we're talking about the end of Loaded, but Dave, I just want to hear you describe this. Can you describe to our listeners here on the ReLoaded podcast, I'm sure everyone saw it, but can you describe what happened right at the beginning of Loaded? Because I'm not sure I can put this into words.
Well, I would describe it as both the worst and best of humanity, because what we saw was, to start with, the height of distaste. You know, it was the most unpleasant, uncomfortable, as I say, distasteful thing that I think I've seen in a very, very long time, where you've got someone essentially simulating a funeral because they believe that they've ended the career of a colleague, of a peer. And that's what our champion, no less, it wasn't just someone on our roster, our world champion decided to spend airtime doing, to try and literally and figuratively bury Rampage and say that his career was over. So I apologize for that. I'm sure Defiant Wrestling apologizes as well for what Rory Coyle tried to bring to Loaded this past Sunday. It was gross. It was horrendous. But thankfully, we then saw the best in human nature as well, because first of all, Justin Sizem wasn't going to stand for it. Sizem, as he's shown on multiple occasions, is very much the superhero that he claims to be. He stands up for what's right, and he came and put an end to that charade. And then, of course, when he couldn't quite do that on his own, the biggest surprise of all was that the man who we were apparently memorializing, Rampage, came back. And the place exploded for Rampage, right? I mean, did you think we'd ever see Rampage again?
To be honest, it was like looking at a ghost, because I had bought in hook, line and sinker to what Rory Coyle was selling. This was the funeral of Rampage, the wrestler, the man, the myth, the legend, everything. He packaged it up real nice and I bought into it. And then suddenly, as you say, not only did Justin Sizem show incredible bravery to actually pose as one of Coyle's ghastly entourage, but then Rampage appeared out of nowhere. The place came unglued. People were so happy to see Rampage. He came out like a house of fire with that steel chair, started smashing people around, and now, there's just so much chaos going on around here. So much chaos. General Amin, he wanted a triple threat match. That's what he believed would be the best way to deal with, we talk about a John Klinger problem, a Gabriel Kidd problem. Well, this triple threat match that Amin had in mind for Lights Out, it would solve the Rory Coyle problem facing him right now. But that's when Justin Sizem and Rampage, between them, more so Sizem, it has to be said, had something else in mind. And that's going to lead to a massive match next week.
Well, yeah, and again, that's the second time in just a few minutes that we saw the integrity and the true character of Justin Sizem, because Sizem, rather than complain that what had moments previously been a one-on-one match that he was definitely getting at Lights Out for the championship against Rory Coyle. It had been turned into a triple threat match, and rather than complain about that, he got on the microphone and with tremendous respect said to Rampage, you know what, I absolutely respect you. We've battled in promotions up and down the country, including on national television during the past year for various championships. We're talking obviously about World of Sport on ITV, but they've battled in other places as well. And to say, no, you absolutely deserve a rematch. So to propose what he has, which is that rather than have this triple threat match where Rory Coyle can just sit in the corner and wait for Rampage and Sizem to knock lumps out of each other and then pick at the pieces afterwards to win the match, Sizem saying, no, why don't we go one-on-one and then the winner goes one-on-one with Coyle at Lights Out. So that is an incredible gesture from Sizem, right? Because what that means is Sizem has talked himself out of what would have been a guaranteed title match at Lights Out because he thought it was the right thing to do. And what he's done instead is put an extra obstacle in his place. He now has to beat Rampage one-on-one if he's still going to get that match at Lights Out. So an incredible gesture. Is it a smart one, though? Because I don't know if Sizem or if anyone can beat Rampage. I mean, we've seen Coyle do it once. I'm not sure whether that was 1 in a million because Rampage just doesn't lose normally. And I don't know if Sizem's going to beat him.
Well, you know, I wholeheartedly agree. I think that Justin Sizem actually shot himself in the foot by taking himself out of that guaranteed championship match. But yes, he's a superhero. He wants to prove himself. But this is why I believe that Rory Coyle has Defiant Wrestling under this spell. He has enveloped the entire place in this sickness because no one is seeing sense. You know, General Amin, to his credit, and I cannot believe I'm about to say these words, he was the only one in that entire situation who had it sussed. He thought that by putting Rampage and Justin Sizem into a triple threat match with Rory Coyle, that inevitably Sizem and Rampage would join forces to tear down this maniacal movie man of a champion and then battle it out for the Defiant Championship. But Justin Sizem, his pride got in the way. So did Rampage's as well. I agree with you. I think this is a big risk from Sizem because Rampage, yes, he did lose the championship to Coyle, but he hasn't got many losses, in his history here in Defiant Wrestling. Rampage held that championship for the best part of 1 calendar year, and this is brave from Sizem because, it was brave enough to sneak up behind Rory Coyle and wear one of those hoods and be part of that funeral. It's another brave gesture, as you put it, from Sizem to put his money where his mouth is and say to Rampage, I want to beat you first. Coyle is sick in the head though, Dave. He'll do whatever it takes. He'll use any shortcut to get the job done. It doesn't look like Sizem and Rampage are willing to do the same, and that's why I think the champ has both in his back pocket.
See, I think from a means perspective, and he actually said this on Sunday, he said he doesn't like that solution that Sizem has suggested with him facing Rampage and then the winner going on to face Coyle, because if it was a three-way match, statistically, there was a 2 in 3 chance, I think, in a means head that Coyle doesn't leave with the championship. And if you're the general manager of Defiant right now, that's got to be one of your top priorities, to not have Rory Coyle as the front man for this company. He's a terrible ambassador, obviously, for any number of reasons. To be the guy with the championship is not something that Defiant's board of directors or our general manager can stand for. So he thought it was a 2 out of 3 shot, and now it's just a 50-50 shot. Is he right, or is Sizem right? Because Sizem's argument is, no, you know what? That if we were in a three-way, that would give Coyle the advantage because he would be sneaky enough and underhanded enough to sit back and wait for Rampage and Sizem to beat each other up, and then, as I say, just pick at the pieces and pin whatever was left of them after they'd finished going at each other. So from Sizem's point of view, there's more chance of defeating Coyle this way. I mean, who's right? Is Amin right or is Sizem right?
Again, I hate to say it, but I'm going to have to side with the general manager because I think his plan was pretty watertight. I think he thought that if you put Sizem and Rampage in there, Coyle would have nowhere to run. He would have no mind games, no cards left to play. But the long and short of it is, it doesn't matter because next week now on Loaded, we have a huge #1 contendership match. Rampage versus Justin Sizem. The winner gets Rory Coyle at Lights Out. The champ can just sit there, put his feet up, watch He can have a 6'6" smile on his face, no doubt. And then he can look at the strengths and weaknesses of his would-be opponents and, you know, take all the notes in the world if he even does that. I'm not even sure a man that ghastly can even write or read or do anything. He just seems like an absolute animal. But he's going to be prepared. He's going to have the jump on either Sysum or Rampage. He will know their strengths and weaknesses before Lights Out, and that could be crucial.
And by the way, this match is happening on Sunday, so it's only going to be 3 days before Lights Out anyway. Right? So it's all very well saying, oh, well, you know, one of us can go in fresh against Rory Coyle on Wednesday night. I mean, if they have the kind of match that these two have had elsewhere when they go one-on-one on Loaded on Sunday, then whoever wins is not going to be back to 100% in time for Wednesday. I mean, there's no way, because these two are just incredible athletes who will absolutely batter each other in the main event on Sunday night.
Oh, they really are. And, you know, you said something interesting there. You said that both men had no chance of being at 100%. You know who else isn't at 100%?
Go on.
The Defiant Women's Champion, Kanji.
You know what? I'm glad you bring this up, actually, because I want to address with you the way you handled having Kanji on commentary on Sunday, because it was actually hilarious. So you've spent the past few weeks agreeing with Lizzie Styles that Kanji's injury, and you've already talked about it again on this show today, casting doubt on whether Kanji's injury has been legitimate. And then as soon as I raise it with Kanji sitting at the commentary desk, you become but you can't stop stuttering. It was embarrassing. If you're that sure that she's faking an injury, why don't you have the courage of your convictions when she's sitting next to us?
You didn't let me finish. I did not say that Kanji wasn't at 100% physically, but who can say for sure that she's at 100% mentally going into this championship match at Lights Out? Because we now know for a fact that the one-woman army, Lizzie Styles, she will face Kanji at Lights Out. She defeated Laura Di Matteo one-on-one on Loaded. The champ, as you rightly say, was there live and in living colour to watch it happen. Now, whether Kanji's injuries are legit or not, she seemed very shaken up by Styles going face-to-face with her on Loaded. Styles has confidence. She has this swagger about her.
None of this is what I've asked you. We'll get to that in a second. That's not what I'm asking you. I'm saying that for the past several weeks, you have been agreeing, nodding along like a nodding dog whenever Lizzie Styles talks about Kanji's injury not being real. Then when I put it to you that that's what you've been saying, with Kanji sitting next to us, you denied it. You denied that you'd said it.
Well, you know, I can't, fight with a compelling, convincing argument. Lizzie Styles is intoxicating when she talks. It's that beautiful, wonderful, melodic Scouse accent. It's just, you know, when she speaks, the entire world listens, and I believe that the one-woman army could be a champion-elect.
All right. Well, I've given you a chance to try and justify yourself. You've taken both those. I've given you 2 chances to do it. You failed to do it on both occasions. So let's talk about the match. You are right. Lizzie Styles did defeat Laura Di Matteo, and those were 2 women who were essentially undefeated. Di Matteo certainly was. Technically, Styles wasn't, but she'd never been pinned or submitted. She now has gone on to defeat Di Matteo, and as you say, it will be Styles against Kanji. And to your point, psychologically, yes, it could be big, big trouble for Kanji, because at least in Di Matteo's case, there was no evidence either way. Kanji's never faced Di Matteo, so there was no reason for Kanji to go into that kind of downward spiral of self-doubt that she's had several times in the past. Whereas to face Styles again one-on-one, well, we know that Styles has beaten Kanji, not once but twice, when the title wasn't on the line. So for Kanji to have to face Styles in a one-on-one match on pay-per-view next Wednesday is a big, big ask for someone who has been as mentally fragile as Kanji has been.
It's a huge ask. You know, Kanji, don't forget, fairly recently here in Defiant Wrestling, she approached the general manager and offered to give up her role as women's champion around here. She didn't have the confidence to go on. She was believing all the haters on social media. She was giving in to the pressure of her peers. And I believe that Lizzie Styles, she smells blood. She can see that she has Kanji backpedaling, and now it lights out. There's no more backpedaling because Kanji will have to face Lizzie Styles one-on-one inside that ring, and then I guess we'll find out if the women's champion is ready to defend that gold, because if she's not, if she even enters that match at 99.9%, whether physically or mentally, it doesn't matter. That's going to mean she's going to lose that title. You talk about me stammering. Well, I'm going to be saying you're new Defiant Women's Champion Lizzie Styles. That's exactly what I'll be saying. That's exactly what our ring announcer Stevie Aaron will be saying. It's what the entire world will be saying. And I think Kanji knows it's only a matter of time.
Well, Kanji and Lizzie Styles is the latest match that has been signed for Lights Out. What a show it's going to be. We now know, of course, that Rory Coyle might not be facing Justin Sizem. After all, it's Coyle versus either Sizem or Rampage. The internet title is going to be on the line as well. Martin Kirby defending against Lucky Kid. We know that the man that Gravity forgot, the Bastard Pac, will go up against El Phantasmo after Phantasmo won that four-way match just a week or so ago, week and a half ago now on Loaded. We know that it's Klinger against Hendry. We know that it's Kid against Starr, although both of those matches presumably with some question mark hanging over them after what happened on Sunday. So much going on next Wednesday in Leeds. You can still join us at the O2 Academy in Leeds next Wednesday night. Tickets available at wearedefiant.com/tickets. And of course, you can catch it all live on demand on pay-per-view, beaming across the world at access.wearedefiant.com. And if you're a new customer, you can watch it for absolutely free as part of your 30-day no-commitment trial. So no excuse whatsoever to miss Lights Out next Wednesday. There is, of course, another match that we are going to have at Lights Out, because we know that Mark Haskins is going to be in action, and his opponent will be determined this coming Sunday on Loaded when Robbie X goes one-on-one with man like DeReiss. Winner gets Haskins the following Wednesday in Leeds. Who have you got? Who's going to win?
Well, speaking of smelling blood, did you see the confidence on Mark Haskins' face as he sat there in between man like DeReiss and Robbie X, who were having this little back and forth, doubting themselves, bemoaning their lot in Defiant Wrestling? Haskins, well, he admitted that he's had it rough at points too. Don't forget how he entered this company. Haskins wanted to take over in Defiant. It didn't quite work out.
We remember. We both remember that.
Oh, God, you're not kidding. I have nightmares about it, Dave. I know you do as well, because sometimes in the middle of the night, 2, 3 a.m., my phone lights up and it says Dave Bradshaw. I answer and say, hello. Sleepily, I might add. I like to get a good 7-8 hours every night. It's good for the complexion. And then when I answer my phone, all I hear is this sobbing on the other end of the line. And Dave just, he cannot get the visions of what Mark Haskins did to him out of his mind.
Sure that's not Taylor Hanson?
Oh, come on. That's a low blow. That's a low blow. That's just bang out of order.
I'm sorry.
Just for that, I'm not telling you who I think is going to face Mark Haskins. You're going to have to watch Loaded just like everyone else and find out.
All right, well, tell me this. Why was Haskins so chirpy? Because Haskins didn't seem like his normal self when he was sat between those two. He was very enthusiastic to the point of manic, I thought. Is it because he smelled blood, like you put it? I don't know. Or does Haskins just have such a strange and volatile personality that at one minute he's the most dangerous man alive, and then the next minute he's like an optimistic life coach, it felt like he was being for those two. So I don't know what to make of that version of Mark Haskins.
Well, here's the thing. Because even though, as you say, Mark Haskins was very chirpy, he was all smiles, he was encouraging to man like DeReiss and Robbie X. He called Robbie X one of the best wrestlers in Europe today. He said that man like DeReiss would be that in the future, even though, you know, he was full of all this praise and back-patting and encouragement. You just know that whether it's Robbie X or DeReiss at Lights Out, as soon as that bell rings, in fact, scrap that, as soon as Mark Haskins enters the arena and he bursts through that curtain, He's going to be a vicious attack dog who definitely will smell blood whether DeReiss or Robbie X are bleeding at all. Because as soon as that bell rings, Mark Haskins is all business. This is a man who over the weekend appeared in the hallowed halls of Madison Square Garden. This is a man who is a former tag team champion here in Defiant Wrestling and somehow managed to forge a relationship with Jimmy Havoc along the way. So Mark Haskins is a master of mind games, and I just wonder if this is another chapter in that madness.
Well, Haskins to face either Robbie X or a man like DeReiss, as you say. I mean, if you're Haskins, would you rather face Robbie X because you know him? Now, Haskins has faced Robbie X in promotions up and down the country on countless occasions. I don't know if I've ever seen Haskins against a man like DeReiss anywhere. I can't say for sure whether they've ever competed. I don't think they have. And certainly it would be a much less familiar opponent for Haskins than Robbie X would be. On the flip side of that, of course, is that maybe that's to DeReiss's advantage. Because if it's Robbie X, then it's a known quantity for Haskins. So, I don't know. I don't know who's the favourite. You would guess Robbie X is the favourite on Sunday based on experience, I suppose. But they're right, both of them. Neither of them have had that much success in Defiant, although they've both come close on a number of occasions. So I don't know who the favourite is going in. I don't know who Haskins would rather face. But one of them's going to face him.
Oh, can you imagine, though, for a man like DeReiss, you know, this is going to consume him over the next week or so, because he could be on the cusp of something truly special. If man like DeReiss can defeat Robbie X, who went toe-to-toe with Pac, of all people, on his debut here in Defiant Wrestling, if man like DeReiss can get past Robbie X and then somehow find a way to defeat Mark Haskins at Lights Out, you can strap a rocket to that kid. There's something special about him anyway, but if he can pick up those two massive victories in quick succession, we could be looking at a future championship contender.
And by the way, I think both of them, those two, are being far too down on themselves. Because Robbie X, as you say, took Pac to the limit, and then was part of that four-way, could have easily won that match as well. Man like DeReiss, yeah, he hasn't had that big signature win yet, but he's been getting close, and he was absolutely one of the stars of the Magnificent Seven match. You know, neither of those guys are guys you just think, oh, they're out of their depth here. In both cases, you just think it's a matter of time. But for one of them, that moment in time will come this Sunday.
I firmly believe that both Robbie X and man like DeReiss, as does everyone here in Defiant, they realise, what do I always say? Wins and losses. They matter in this company. And when a wrestler loses on a Defiant Wrestling event, whether it be loaded or a pay-per-view, they feel it in their bones. And then it starts to creep up the way inside their brains. They start to doubt themselves. It's a natural human reaction. But I would agree with you. You know, that's far too many times you and I have seen eye to eye on this broadcast. But man like DeReiss and Robbie X, they have nothing to doubt themselves over. Yes, their luck has been up and down here in Defiant, but Robbie X has only just got here. Same goes for man like DeReiss. Both have bright futures. Maybe Mark Haskins sees that, or maybe Mark Haskins wants to use both to his advantage so he can get a leg up and creep ever closer to championships himself.
All right, well, Robbie X and man like DeReiss, winner gets Haskins. That match, Robbie and DeReiss, is coming up this Sunday on Loaded. One more match we've got to talk about before we go on Loaded this coming week. The No Fun Championship. And again, that's not what it's called, but we'll call it that for the sake of argument. It's on the line this Sunday. No Fun Dunn, who's had quite a week. Unfortunately, he's going to be on Loaded again this week against Jack Sexsmith of Tuck Shop with the No Fun title on the line. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I really hope that, say Jack Sexsmith does become the champion, I really hope he has the common decency to continue the fine lineage of the No Fun Championship. There's no way you can drag this championship back to the dark ages, back to that hardcore nonsense. Jack Sexsmith, he's a revolutionary himself. He's a forward thinker. You know, he must realise what No Fun Done is trying to achieve here. No, they don't see eye to eye. Yes, General Amin wants that belt off of No Fun Done. Will it happen? Only Jack Sexsmith can make it happen.
You are unbelievable. Because half an hour ago, Jack Sexsmith was a hardened criminal who you said had attacked Adam Foster. And now suddenly he's a great forward thinker.
Well,
I mean, you You just change when the wind changes, don't you?
Listen, no, hear me out. All I said was that we don't know if Jack Sexsmith or Visage had anything to do with that attack on Adam Foster. I didn't say that they necessarily done it. But if they did have a hand in it, then no fun done. He should be running scared, because that shows a new dynamic to Jack Sexsmith and his personality. If he is vicious enough to attack someone in cold blood, then wow, he could be a huge threat to that no fun championship. But as I say, if Sexsmith becomes the new champ, hopefully he will see it within himself to carry on the great traditions set by No Fun Done.
Well, No Fun Done, I think, should count himself lucky he's even able to defend this championship this week, because I think he should be suspended, as should the other 4 men involved in that attack on Sunday night. But anyway, it is going to happen. No Fun Done versus Jack Sexsmith, No Fun title on the line. That's going to round out a big episode of Loaded, of course, as we've been talking about, headlined by Rampage versus Sizen, with the winner getting a title shot 3 days later at Lights Out against Rory Coyle. Exciting times. What do you got coming up this week? What's happening?
Well, normally at this point in the show, Bradshaw, I will tell you who this week's girlfriend is. And after that debacle with Taylor Hanson, which you joked about earlier on in today's show, and I didn't appreciate that, by the way. I didn't appreciate that one bit, because that meant a great deal to me.
I'm sorry. It was very cruel of me. I deeply and sincerely apologise.
Oh, I can just... The sarcasm is just oozing out of you,
I can't even apologise anymore without you criticising.
That was deadpan. That wasn't a real apology. But anyway, this week's girlfriend is no one. Because I'm taking some time out. That debacle with Taylor Hanson, it's rocked me. Bloody Benji fan that she is. She's a glory hound. No doubt about it in my mind. She didn't care about little Benji like I did before he won the Magnificent Seven briefcase. And then all of a sudden, she was all over him, thinking he was the best thing since sliced bread. And here's another thing. Let's add a new section to the ReLoaded podcast, because I think it's about time we started selling some merch. No, we're not going to have t-shirts with Dave Bradshaw's face on them, but I managed to procure that unopened SCC t-shirt that Taylor Hanson never even had the decency to wear once, even though I got it as a special gift, and it's now back on the market. So Dave has already bid £50, so we'll start the bidding there. And if you ask me though, just like our esteemed Defiant Tag Team Champions, that shirt is priceless.
Is it an SCC shirt? Do they even have their own shirts, or is it just a Will Ospreay shirt?
Well, Will Ospreay, SCC, a lot of people would say it's the same thing, because, let's be honest, all 3 of them are just so talented.
Yeah, all right. I don't know where to go with that. Let's just leave it there. And obviously I haven't bid £50 on a t-shirt, but let's let you continue to live in your strange fantasy world. That's going to do it. How can people follow you on Twitter if they want more of this nonsense?
Well, if they want more of this nonsense, if they want more of this genius, this wisdom, my life lessons and managerial expertise can be found on both Twitter and Instagram at Top Class Kennedy.
All right, you can follow me on Twitter at Dave Bradshaw, or on Instagram at Dave Bradshaw83. You can talk to us at Defiant Rest, that's Defiant WRES on Twitter as well. And of course, use the hashtag #WeAreDefiant to join the conversation. That's going to do it as we go into an absolutely massive episode of Loaded this Sunday. And following that, of course, Lights Out on Wednesday, a week from now. Big times ahead in the next 7 days or so here in Defiant. Thank you for listening. I've been Dave Bradshaw for James R. Kennedy, and we will see you again next week on the ReLoaded podcast.